Welcome to Chapter 5, Developing Leadership Skills. So, as the cliche goes, do you got skills? Determining your leadership skills and communication skills will go a long way towards helping you become an effective leader, whether you're leading from the top or from the bottom. We've looked at leadership as a trait, styles of leadership, and tasks and relationship components of leadership. Now we're going to look at leadership skills critical for success. For Chapter 5, you'll need to understand different types of skills, their subsets, and how those can make you effective as a leader. Be sure to note this lecture covers interpersonal skills not in the book, so take notes. Until more recently, leadership research focused on traits. Since 2000, we've seen a shift in focus from traits to skills. Why? Unlike traits, skills can be developed. The skills approach represents a shift in thinking from a focus on personality characteristics, traits that we view as fixed and inherent, so that traits approach, or great man approach, to emphasis on skills and abilities which can be learned and developed. Skills are what leaders can accomplish, whereas traits are who leaders are. Thus, skill building is a major focus in leadership training and classes. For example, Harvard Business School offers a skill-focused leadership training program. And you may want to pay attention to the words that are used in this chapter and the way we discuss it, so that you can develop the stories that you tell interviewers to show that development of these skills. So just a hint. So if you're wondering what makes a leader effective, you're on the right track. Researchers who study, I'm starting again. So, if you're wondering what makes a leader effective, you're on the right track. Researchers who study the skills approach to leadership are looking to answer just that question. From this research, they want to be able to tell future leaders how to increase their chances of success. This graphic explains the three categories that you'll need to know about leadership skills. The foundational approach for leadership skills says effective leaders should have all three areas. First, administrative. That means the ability to work with things. Second, interpersonal skills. That means the ability to work with people. Third, conceptual skills. The ability to work with ideas. Let's look at the skill sets each in more detail. As our book states, this may not sound too glamorous, but administrative skills play a primary role. The book explains, quote, administrative skills refer to those competencies a leader needs to run an organization in order to carry out the organization's purposes and goals, unquote. To switch to the dark side, maybe you can think of a manager who had a great vision for improving a new product line or something routine at your work, but the person has no concept of scheduling, budgeting, or assigning tasks to the right person. They drop in, say, get it done, and drop out. Good luck adding that to your current workload. If you've ever had to ask, but when do I do this new task? That means you have a leader who probably lacks administrative skills. They're so important. Another way people talk about these is as an ability to work with things are called technical skills. Here's one more example. Think of how in an accounting firm, technical skills could include using what you've learned in classes to do an audit. It's hands-on, there's a product, they're important. Now, if you reach CEO, you might not flex this skills muscle as much, but you'll depend on people who do. Here are three of those technical skills. First, managing people means management by walking around. Think of a manager who would get involved or help employees work as a team. I knew a sales director who would step in for her administrative assistant to give her a lunch break. Actions like that motivate employees to do their best and promote satisfaction. Administrative skills include responsiveness, too. This skill set includes being able to handle urgent staff matters quickly and effectively. At a C-suite level, remember that's the CEO, this could include communicating effectively with a board of directors, a planning and zoning board, or investors. It's not just the CEO, it's anybody in that upper management group. All right, now, are you wondering why this is under administrative and not interpersonal? This skill is about accomplishing tasks through people. You're not usually communicating with a planning and zoning board for fun. A good leader understands how a team is working and is involved with what is going on so they can meet their goals. They're talking to different stakeholders and communicating with them effectively to support the goals of the organization. Second, managing resources. The book calls these the lifeblood of an organization and gives a pretty good list. people, money, supplies, equipment, space, or anything else needed to operate an organization. Whether you're in a public or private organization, this will be part of what you'll need to do. Maybe it's something simple like getting a new whiteboard for a conference room after you respond to your team's request. You'll need to manage money, supplies, space, funds, maintenance funds, and perhaps new staff, and find someone to gift the old equipment. Not only does the leader know what they need, but they are also skilled at getting it. That could be through ordering inventory, negotiating with other departments for more equipment or space. It involves getting things done so your followers and team can be effective. Finally, technical competence. This is the specialized knowledge that we started with on the example of the auditor. It is specialized knowledge. That could even include an understanding of how an organization works. It's why sometimes the best promotions are internal. The people who are promoted, they know the place. You'll also see this called functional competence in the book. Think about your major. You're already being trained in technical skills so that when you enter the workplace, you can understand the basics of what's going on. As you learn more about the company, how the organization functions, what's required in your department, you develop that competence more and more. Now, interpersonal skills might sound a little more glamorous to some of you. Perhaps others of you would rather go back to your auditing skills. Now, interpersonal skills are very important. Don't disparage them. Research has pointed out how important they are. The book defines these as, quote, people skills. Those abilities that help a leader to work effectively with followers, peers, and superiors to accomplish the organization's goals, unquote. This isn't just about being able to have a good relationship with someone or talk to them. Effective leaders have the capacity to understand people and social systems. This is what helps them work with others to solve problems. Let's go beyond our book and look at some research on these 5 areas. First, let's talk about a concept called perspective taking, or understanding the attitudes that others have towards a matter. You are sensitive and empathetic to others' perspectives and goals. This is the kind of leader who's able to understand others' points of view on different issues. They'll get that people have different views of problems and solutions. Does that sound like empathy a little? Well, it's different. Empathy is about feelings. Perspective taking is about cognition and seeing another viewpoint. It's more like social intelligence, where a person is able to understand people, the social fabric of the organization, and how things are interconnected. There's a big benefit here. It has been found to decrease prejudice and stereotyping. An experiment found that when people were asked to describe an African American man in a photograph, they'd say things like musical, athletic, and negative stereotypes like aggressive or forgetful. When people were asked to write a day in the life essay about that man, they attributed fewer stereotypical traits. Here's a good example. You get an email from a support person at 1 a.m. with a memo draft and an apology for it being messy. You can jump to lots of different stereotypes there, but what if you pause and consider what that person's day might have been? You're probably going to be able to communicate a more effective reply. This can also help in negotiations. You can think about what the opponent wants, and in teams, you can get to deeper thinking. Here's an example. A leader could use perspective taking by listing stakeholders and the impact of a decision like downsizing. Pausing to think categorically about outcomes can support better choices. Second, let's look at being socially perceptive. The book explains this is, quote, having insight into and awareness of what is important to others, how they are motivated, the problems they face, and how they react to change. The book gives the example of changing the location of a graduation ceremony. Maybe you've seen this with your high school where a change was made to a ceremony, an event, or a mascot. Let's use the local high school where one of our BCOM faculty attended. I bet many people here have also graduated from Arlington. Martin High School used a Native American warrior as its mascot since it opened in Arlington in 1982, and a Native American tribal chieftain hat. In 2020, the principal announced the discontinuation, and some alumni from Martin High School were really upset. The administration did not seem prepared for this spirited response. The alumni are not that spirited generally. A leader needs to understand symbols, buy-in, and response. This is why places will run focus groups, for example, or have committees to give input. But if your committee isn't diverse, you're going to run into issues. It's not enough to understand how people might react. It's also about changing and adapting one's behavior in light of that potential reaction. A flexible leader isn't locked into one approach, but is willing to change to meet followers' needs. Now let's talk about showing emotional intelligence. The book explains this is, quote, a person's ability to understand his or her own and others' emotions, and then to apply this understanding to life's tasks. A good leader knows their own emotions, has empathy, and can regulate emotions. Now, this is cultural, but you can probably imagine a leader expressing sadness by wiping an eye during a difficult moment. Now try to imagine that leader sobbing and wailing. It wouldn't be done in our American setting because that leader would regulate emotions knowing that doing so could be helpful to those around him. People who are more sensitive to their emotions and the impact of their emotions on others will be more effective. You might think about this as being a thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermostat reads the temperature, i.e. emotions, in the room, the leaders and others, and adjusts accordingly to make the room more comfortable. A thermometer measures the temperature but just gives a reading. What if you're on a team lead, pushing your team to wrap a project up on a Friday night so you can leave for the weekend, and then you notice people are expressing stress and tension? As a lead, you can notice that being a thermometer, you would just measure that, note it, and keep going. Or you can be a thermostat and find a way to change the dynamic and mood. So you'll take the temperature, recognize that there's a problem, and change everyone so that it's a better evening. Your team lead, isn't that part of your responsibility? How do you do it? Maybe you're offering verbal encouragement, or you order dinner. Whatever meets the needs of your team. And finally, on our deep dive into interpersonal skills, let's look at handling conflict. We're coming back to this in depth in Chapter 11. One thing to know now is that, and I'm quoting your book here, conflict creates the need for change and occurs as the result of change, unquote. I love that line. There are whole books on this topic. In this class, we're going to define conflict as a struggle between two or more individuals over perceived differences regarding substantive issues or over perceived differences regarding relational issues. Your book mentions that leaders and followers can feel uncomfortable, but you'll probably also find you work with people who thrive on conflict and change. So let's review this section on interpersonal skills. They are about being sensitive to how your perspectives fit with others. Can you understand your emotions? Can you understand others' perspectives and feelings? Are you flexible? Can you adapt? Can you work together even if there is resistance and conflict? It's not the touchy-feely stuff that interpersonal can bring to mind. It's practical, day-to-day, applicable skills. Theodore Hesburgh, former president of Notre Dame, said, "The very essence of leadership is that you have to have a vision. It's got to be a vision you articulate clearly and forcefully on every occasion." Having a vision is part of having a good grasp on conceptual skills. The book includes problem-solving, strategic planning, and creating a vision, and explains those in detail. I won't repeat what the book covers, but take a moment to think about a leader with a vision. The first time I saw a Tesla, I certainly didn't think that company would perform like it would. I mean, if I did, I'd be a lot wealthier right now. Here's the core idea. When you're leading, your ability to communicate about the problem, the solutions, the implementation, the vision for success will create buy-in and engagement. Alan Mulally, former CEO of Boeing and then president and CEO of Ford, was asked in an interview how he would describe his leadership style. He said, "It's important to have a compelling vision and a comprehensive plan. Positive leadership, conveying the idea that there's always a way forward, is so important because that is what you are here for, to figure out how to move the organization forward." He explains that part of that is including everyone because, and he said this, it's just more fun. So how do leadership skills relate to leadership styles? Let's continue talking about the Ford Boeing former CEO. Mulally held a weekly BPR meeting, as business plan review. He said he got energy from that, and one of his examples of energy included noting things like an upcoming vacation on a calendar. Earlier, I mentioned knowing things about the personal lives of employees. That's how that can work. So having that weekly meeting is part of how he checks in and creates those relationships. Let's review a little and apply each of the three categories of skills to levels of management. Keep this image in mind. All right. Administrative, also called technical skills, are most important at lower levels of the organization, where there is a focus on task completion. Top leaders like CEOs rely on skilled followers to handle technical issues. Interpersonal skills are important at every level, but most important in the middle manager role because there's such a need for collaboration. Conceptual skills are most important at the top level where strategic decisions are made. When top leaders don't have these skills, they can jeopardize the whole organization. Originally, this conceptualization of skills and leadership levels was created in 1955. In 2000, a study by Mumford, Campion, and Morgeson reinforced this by looking at skills needed at different leadership levels. They looked at the skills of 1,000 managers. The results showed that interpersonal and cognitive, or administrative skills, were required more than strategic skills in lower levels of organizational leadership. But as one rose up the leadership ranks, the execution of higher levels of all skills was needed. There was a little conflict with the idea of being less technical at the top. So it really depends on the situation. I would look at it as it never hurts to have technical skills, but top leaders tend to use the other skills more because of their role, right? So please come back to this, think about it, and then look at it before the test again. Career experiences help you develop these skills. Leaders develop skills over time. Career experience helps this, but that's not the only way you can develop these leadership skills. You learn through challenging assignments, mentoring relationships, seeking out training, and gaining hands-on experience. You can pursue certifications, even some that we have opened doors to you, like LinkedIn Learning. So that is a huge area where you can build some extra skills. Earlier, I mentioned the Harvard Business School leadership course that emphasizes skills, and that's open to you. It does self-assessment and uses case studies, so it's going to repeat some of this course, but there are a lot of opportunities out there. In conclusion, you learn more problem-solving skills as you encounter problems. The higher you rise in an organization, the more complex and long-term those problems can be, and you can learn through experience how to address them. You will rely on past experiences, past knowledge, and advice from others to sharpen these skills. We covered a lot in this lecture, and the big takeaway here is that you need to know your skills to develop your skills and to know how to communicate with other people. So the Dunning-Kruger effect lives here too. And what is that effect? It's where the less you know about something, the easier you think it is to do. And the more you know about something, the more aware you are of the nuances and different skills needed to accomplish something. And you better understand difficulty level. So keep that in mind. If you don't know anything, much like I've had a student rate his own Excel skills after he'd only used Excel once or twice, he told me he was an intermediate at Excel, and I thought, ooh, he doesn't even know what he doesn't know. So the more skills you get, the more you'll be able to identify and thus develop your skills. I hope you have a great day. Bye.